Yes, sirree, and a very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. Happy Easter. Happy Easter. Yes, sirree. Today happens to be the 12th day of April, and, things just don't feel like they normally do at this time of the year. I mentioned, I think it was on Friday night, I mentioned that Good Friday came and went. And apart from the fact that, yes, I did make a conscious effort to commune with my Creator, you could hardly even notice that it was Good Friday. Now, what is there to notice about Good Friday? I don't know. It's just an internal thing. Well, I'll tell you, I didn't feel it. And I'm not alone. I've spoken with several people who just didn't feel like it was Good Friday. And this morning, same old feeling here. Same old feeling here this morning. It's Easter Sunday, and let me tell you, it's a beautiful one. Just a few minutes ago, standing out there on the balcony, looking out, there's yes, lots of sunshine, everything is at peace, but there's an eerie still over this country this morning. Well, at least over city of St. George here, you know, the Grand Anse area, the Carinage, downtown Belmont. Just an eerie feeling out there this morning. Yeah. Anyhow, my dear friends, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for joining me for today's edition of Sundays with George Grant. Yeah. Let's let's take a look at the rundown and see what we're going to be getting into this morning. By the way, I see that Oswin Lewis is there this morning, first up on YouTube. Good morning, Oswin. And Mr. Floyd Bishop is checking in from Brooklyn. Boy, Floyd, my heart goes out to you and Mags and Arthur and everybody else out there in Brooklyn. This must be one of the most difficult times you people have ever undergone. Yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at the rundown. This morning, as always, we'll get started with The Buzz, where we do have a reading from the Holy Scriptures for you. And yeah, little Angel's chiming in this morning, got her stuff last night, and I'm going to be sharing that with you in just a few minutes. As far as editorial content is concerned, well, this morning I have two pieces for you. The regular from the New Today. Yeah, we do have that for you. And that, by the way, was published in their online edition this week, okay? They're not publishing hard copies of the New Today, so assuming that you might have snuck out and went looking for the New Today and didn't find one, that's why. Check them out online, okay? Their piece this week was captioned, "Be honest and sincere." Good call. Then, the reason why I said editorials is because this morning, boy, oh boy, I have a piece that I want to share with you. And I think I'm going to adjust the timing of that piece and read it just before we get into our main feature this morning. Okay? The piece, by the way, was written by KARI LAGRENADE, who is KARI GRENADE, not LAGRENADE. Why do I keep saying LAGRENADE? It's GRENADE, KARI GRENADE. She is a regional economist, and it is captioned, "The Next New Normal, the Caribbean Post-COVID-19." Yeah. I read that piece, and I tell you, I was really moved by what I was reading. And I thought, hey, this is a really good preamble to what we're going to be doing this morning. Because our main feature this morning, as you've probably seen there on the page, and by the way, when you look at the page and you see op-ed KARI LAGRENADE, take off that LA, please, please. Too late for me to do that right now, but take it off. Okay. Our main feature this morning, I guess you might call it part 3 in a series. A couple of weeks ago, we started doing a series called The Corona Comeback, where we're trying to chart the way forward for Grenada post-Corona, post-COVID. And again, there it says part 2. My dear, this should be part 3 because we've done 2 pieces already. And yeah, I'm going to be talking with a number of people this morning, 4 persons actually, and I had planned on 5, but unfortunately, just a few minutes ago, I received a phone call from one party explaining that he's really, really not feeling well this morning, and he's not going to be able to join us. His name is Lennox Andrew. Lennox has been with us on several occasions. Very, very well-respected economist. But unfortunately, he's under the weather this morning, so he's not going to join us. However, I am expecting that 4 other persons will join us, and I'm hoping that they're not sick as well. Okay? I'm hoping. They are Mr. Kennedy Roberts, who is a lecturer at the St. George's University, Mr. Dunstan Campbell, who is a senator and an agriculturalist, Ms. Wendy GRENADE, who is a professor of political science at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, and Mr. Andre Lewis, who is a trade unionist. All right? Now, how did I manage to select those 4 people? This morning, I would really like us to spend a little time thinking about the way forward for our economy. Okay? Yeah, the economy. And while talking to these different people, you know, I made a number of calls trying to invite them to the program. One thing after another came up, and it was recommended that I should also take a look at education. You know, with all the kids at home these days, things are pretty messy, yeah? So we need to take a serious look at education as well. And that is where Wendy GRENADE, Professor GRENADE, has volunteered to help us. She's going to talk about that. I'm looking forward. Wendy's always so, hey, please. Wendy's always so stimulating. Let's hear what she has to say this morning. Okay. Then, Mr. Andre Lewis. Andre is the president of the Technical and Allied Workers Trade Union. As far as I know, he's also the, I think it's Secretary General of the that umbrella group for the trade unions, Trade Union Council. Another gentleman, this one's going to talk about agriculture. Mr. Dunstan Campbell. Dunstan is a senator, sits in the Senate, and very well versed. He's been on this program before. He's very well versed in the field of agriculture. And I wanted somebody to talk about food security because, you know, boy, yesterday there was one brouhaha on the SWGG chat box, my WhatsApp chat. about food security. Apparently, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent has invited the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique to come up there if they need anything. Well, let me tell you, something hit the fan, because our Prime Minister did not, I repeat, did not take too kindly to that. I'm not going to get into this morning, but because we're looking for the way forward, okay? But it wasn't a pretty picture yesterday. It wasn't a pretty picture, okay? So, my dear friends, that's going to take care of our rundown for this morning's program. We'll be here until I plan on pulling out of here at 12 o'clock. But you know how these things go. I wouldn't be surprised if we have such a stimulating conversation this morning that we may stretch it a little bit, okay? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let me take a quick look here. Kipling Francis is saying good morning and sending God's blessings. Hello, Trini. Trini62 is saying happy Easter to you guys. John Nosy Neck says good morning or good Sunday, George and the world. Stay safe, all of you. Boy, let me tell you, we're doing the best we can. Nosy Neck, keep putting in a little prayer for us here and there, all right? Okie dokie, yeah. We have now taken care of the preliminaries. Let's take our first little break here for the morning, and then we'll come back and get down to business, if you will, as they say.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
GrenLec, energizing our Grenada.
Conveniently located in the GrenadaBroadcast Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store. Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair granadas will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep,
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Well, folks, it's coming up on 16 and a half minutes after 9 o'clock. Thanks again for joining us this morning. Let's get into this week's edition of The Buzz. We begin with a reading from the Holy Scriptures. We'll start this morning with Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 to 9. Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you. But do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for people to see. They make their phylacteries wide and their tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and to be called Rabbi by others. But you are not to be called Rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth Father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Matthew 23, verses 1 to 9. Just before we pull the curtain down, we'll have another reading for you as we do every Sunday morning. Now, let's see here. Okie dokie, yeah. Let's turn to Little Angel, see what she has to say this week. Her piece, by the way, is captioned, Global Health and Wealth. Human beings can get by without wealth, but they must have health in order to survive. Health or well-being may refer to the mental, physical, emotional, social, and financial state of an individual. Mental and emotional health are as important as physical health. They are all connected and can be influenced by social and financial status. Being healthy means being physically active, feeling good, managing difficulties, maintaining healthy relationships, and meeting financial needs. It also means being able to recover from diseases. Infectious diseases such as Ebola, H1N1, AIDS, the Asian flu, and the 1918 Spanish flu impacted negatively on human beings, causing much disruption to their lives and even death. This is also very obvious with the current spread of the coronavirus all over the world. The spread of infectious diseases can be controlled by washing hands, vaccinating, using antibiotics, staying at home, and disinfecting contaminated surfaces. Laws relating to public health can also be effective in controlling their spread. This was evident with a state of emergency, which was issued followed by a curfew when COVID-19 was first identified in Grenada. Since then, Grenadians are not only informed about the status of COVID-19 on the island, but they're also witnessing horrific stories and statistics surrounding the havoc which the disease is causing around the world. Health systems, good and bad, are challenged. Health workers and essential staff are overwhelmed. And in some cases, hope seems to be lost. Government resources and law enforcement are overstretched, and economic hardships appear to be looming. Given experiences with certain diseases in the past, the world should have known better and be in a more strategic place to manage and mitigate the effects of a pandemic such as COVID-19. The critical question is, why wasn't the world better prepared? Why did so many people have to die? Is the world paying attention to wealth rather than health? Is the focus on material gains rather than maintaining healthy lifestyles? Where's the common sense in forsaking health when it keeps human beings alive? Healthcare systems in their various forms are supposed to assist people in remaining healthy. Indications are that the spread of COVID-19 has challenged even the best hospital facilities in the world. No matter the origin, COVID-19 should be the last infectious disease to cause havoc among us. It is time to refocus so that systems everywhere can be brought up to acceptable standards, and the drive to avoid a repeat of another catastrophe begin in earnest. These efforts must be global and should not be influenced by politics at the local and international levels. Global pandemics call for global collaboration and cooperation. That, my dear friends, is Little Angels offering on this Sunday morning, 12th day. And once again, just in case you missed it, happy and a blessed Easter to you. I hope that sometime over the weekend, if you haven't already done so, you'll give some thought to what the last 3 days mean to you, at least should mean to you. Very sad day on Friday. He was crucified, but alas, like he said he would, he rose today. Okay, pilgrims, let's take another little break here this morning. And then we'll come on back with the editorial from the New Today, right after this. Hang in there.
5 things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
Once again, folks, our main feature this morning, which should get underway at about 10 o'clock this morning, will be part 3 of the Corona comeback as we try to chart the way forward for Grenada after Mr. Corona blows away. And my guest this morning, trade unionist Andre Lewis. And these folks will all be joining me electronically. We're maintaining our social distance. So they'll be on their computers or smartphones. Wendy GRENADE, who is a professor of political science. She's going to be joining us from Barbados. Mr. Dunstan Campbell, a senator and also an agriculturalist, is going to be talking about food security. By the way, Wendy's going to be talking about education. Andre, I imagine, about labor, the trade union movement. Kennedy Roberts has been invited to talk with us about health and the way forward. This is somebody whom I've discovered over the years is just really, really obsessed with the state of healthcare in Grenada. Got some brilliant ideas, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like there are many ears out there absorbing what Kennedy has to say. Hopefully today might be the start of something new. Let's be optimistic. The 5th person I was hoping to have here this morning is an economist by the name of Mr. Lennox Andrew. But unfortunately, just before I went on the air this morning, I received a phone call from Lennox, and he's a little bit under the weather. How could you choose Easter weekend to be under the weather, Lennox? Nevertheless, he is, and he's not going to be able to join us, okay? Good morning, Maria. Hello, Maria. She's saying good morning and happy Easter to everybody. To you too, my friend. And Ryan Jaban is saying Happy Easter, George and friends, and sending us peace. Boy, do we need peace. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, now, let's get into the first of our two editorial pieces. Notice I said two editorial pieces. The reason why I did is because we do have another op-ed which we're going to share with you just before, I think we're going to do that just before we get started with our discussion this morning. Okay? So, here we go. The editorial which appeared in this past week's edition of The New Today is captioned, "Be honest and sincere." There is deep suspicion in society about the believability and honesty of some of the leaders now in the forefront of the fight on the home front against the coronavirus. The New Today can point to the many mixed signals being sent out by our health officials as Grenada tries to battle COVID-19. The most telling incident relates to the positive COVID-19 patient who should have been in isolation but managed to escape from his place of quarantine and passed through the Maurice Bishop International Airport undetected and boarded an Air Canada flight to Canada and then caught another plane to return to the United Kingdom in the company of two other family members. There are reports that some of those who tested positive for COVID-19 have traveled extensively inland, and as such, people at the community level are living in fear since they do not know who in their areas might have interacted with those stricken by the virus. This newspaper, quite frankly, and rightfully so, can understand the fear, anxiety, and panic in the country because it brings to the forefront the serious question: who is really to be trusted around them? In this small global village that we're now living in, the flow of information across borders is leaving some governments very embarrassed. The people of Grenada are able to get first-hand information in a matter of seconds about how the authorities in some of the other neighboring islands are tackling the coronavirus problem. Real-time information is flowing from these governments on the number of persons who are tested for the virus, as well as the numbers that are in isolation and in quarantine, and in some cases, the location of the places where people are confined and restricted. In Grenada, there is not only a vast disparity in the numbers, but the people of the Spice Isle are kept in the total dark on vital information on how many persons are in isolation and quarantine. Is this good enough? Why would the government expect people in Grenada to have confidence in the system when there appears to be a deliberate attempt to not share certain vital information with them? Grenadians are just told several households are now affected. What does that mean? Mr. Steele has told the nation that vigorous and rigorous monitoring is taking place in the fight against COVID-19. Really? Is that true? When an affected person can slip through the airport undetected? There is also a noticeable difference when it comes to the flow of information from the Royal Grenada Police Force as it relates to the number of people being arrested for violating the curfew and the types of charges being laid against them. Is this a case of the powers that be trying to send a clear signal that they are more interested in using the police to keep the people in check as opposed to giving out information? Like what has been alluded to above, such as the testing and isolation issues. The current government should not believe that its two back-to-back 15-0 victories against the National Democratic Congress in general elections means that the people are prepared to believe everything that comes out from officialdom. The virus is not looking for yellow to destroy them and giving a thumbs up to green and leaving them safe from destruction. It's a case of each and every Grenadian having to do what is right and necessary for their own survival. And those who fail to adhere to the principle of social distancing are leaving themselves vulnerable to the virus. Regardless of color, the people on the island are not foolish and know that some COVID-19 patients had exposed a number of persons in Grenada as a result of their unfortunate behavior. The powers that be are also contributing to this fear factor by the relatively low testing numbers when compared to other neighboring islands like Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad, Barbados, and St. Kitts Nevis. The ratio is quite frightening. For Grenada, 12 positive cases from 45 tests. For St. Kitts, 10 cases from 149 tests. And Dominica, 14 positive cases from 255 tests. The Prime Minister raised the hopes of the people when he announced that Grenadians will be seeing lower costs in their electricity bills as part of the stimulus package unveiled due to COVID-19. It was welcomed by many. But days later, Trade Minister Oliver Joseph was forced to publicly admit that this is not the case yet, since government is not in control of GRENADA and was only involved in negotiations with the company on the issue. The New Today found this a rather strange announcement from the Prime Minister in light of the fact that his government had just suffered a massive blow in the GRENADA arbitration matter with the U.S. company WRB, the majority shareholder of the electricity company. The government leaders are constantly advocating the need for social distancing, but are not seemingly enforcing the guidelines in light of the types of gatherings seen at Deco Service Center in Tempe and some of the supermarkets and grocery shops on designated shopping days. This newspaper is hopeful that the horse is still within the stable and has not bolted yet, and that the powers that be really need to act quickly in a very sensible manner to close the door fast, since the virus is proving to be very deadly. A warning to our leader. Please, remember the people are aware of what is happening and are not being fooled. That, pilgrims, is the text of the editorial which appeared in the New Today a couple of days ago. Yes. And that, by the way, was captioned, "Be honest and sincere." Now, let us take another look. You guys are kind of slow in getting out. I don't blame you. It's Easter Sunday morning. Chill. Ryan is sending his piece to Trinity 62. Is anyone else experiencing buffering? I don't know. We'll find out sooner or later, Trinity 62. I know that things are going out, keeping my pinkies crossed, but things are going out really beautifully here. We got a good picture, we got good audio. Anyway. Margaret Rello. It's all cleared up now. It's all cleared up. You know, we've had somebody on these for years named Anthea Rello. And I noticed that when we moved to YouTube, I kept on seeing a Margaret Rello. And I was wondering, you know, curiosity, is that the same person? Well, I just found out that it is, because Margaret Rello and Anthea Rello are both in Decatur, Georgia. She says here, "Good morning, happy Easter to all from Decatur, Georgia." So now we know. Well, Anthea. So what do we call her? We'll call her what she calls herself on YouTube, Margaret. Say hi to your bro for me, Margaret. So that's two mags we have on here now. Ryan Jaban says, confidence in the truth as it's told by Grenada leaders, its existence and reliability in Grenada is dubious because that which is spoken lacks credibility and has partisan interests. No. You noticed? Everything in this place has partisan interests. Sucks. Tana, I hope I'm pronouncing this properly. Tana, T-A-N-A, or Tana. Tana Phillip says, "Good morning, Sir Gigi. Happy Easter to you and families. Just came from a very, very long line at the Stop and Shop supermarket in Brooklyn. And now I can stream the show at my living room TV because of YouTube." Yeah, folks, that's one of the advantages of being on YouTube, eh? A lot of the television sets these days have YouTube built into them, okay? So, my dear friends, you no longer have to be on your little smartphone or your little laptop or your desktop. Hey, just watch this man on your huge 60-inch screen. Yeah? Yeah. Please. Ryan says, no buffering, live and strong, Gigi. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, that's good news. All right. Okay. Okie doke, friends. So we've taken care of the editorial from the New today. Now let's take another little break, and then we will return with that piece from KARI Grenade. And boy, let me tell you, you don't want to miss that.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Spice Island.
GrenLec, energizing our Grenada.
All right, folks, here we go. It's 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. A couple of notes here. First of all, John out there in KARI says, occasional buffering, but then again, this is KARI. Yeah, we know what you go through, John, but you know, like the virus, this too shall pass one of these days. Hey, keep your chin up, keep your chin up. Folks, let us now turn to this op-ed, which was written by KARI GRENADE. KARI is a regional economist and a macroeconomic advisor. And I really want you to listen to this. Let me quote. She says, the next new normal, and that's the caption of this piece, by the way, the next new normal, the Caribbean post-COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic is a global health crisis of enormous proportions. Since the outbreak began in December 2019, there have been over 80,000 deaths worldwide as of April 9th, 2020, of which a total of 38 have been spread across 10 CARICOM countries. Not only is COVID-19 a global health crisis, but it has upended social norms, causing acute psychological pain, and delivered a decisive and pronounced shock to global economic and financial systems. Governments worldwide have rightly focused on containing the spread of the virus, with the ultimate objective of saving lives, with the approximate objective of protecting livelihoods as much as practical and feasible. Indeed, governments' actions must continue, and in some cases, intensify to stop the virus. While current efforts are rightly focused on containment, it is not too early for us in the Caribbean to start thinking about the new normal post-COVID-19. In fact, the next new normal, because we have been in a new normal post the global financial crisis of 2008. For sure, the choice that we will face when we get past COVID-19 is how do we deal once and for all with the myriad of issues that are required to address our vulnerabilities and build our resilience to health and other crises in the future. Make no mistake, everything we do will and must change post-COVID-19. This article offers the following thoughts on how the Caribbean can begin to navigate towards the next new normal. I will elaborate on these ideas in a subsequent publication. 1. Fundamental improvements in pandemic preparedness and health systems. The health crisis has exposed the Caribbean's and the world's by large ill-preparedness to deal with pandemics. Of necessity, therefore, the region needs a quantum shift in its approach to pandemic preparedness, as well as substantial improvements in public health and enhancements in primary healthcare systems, with attendant capacity building and institutional strengthening. 2. Renewed focus on building resilience. Deforestation, pollution, and other forms of environmental degradation exacerbate human health challenges and in turn intensify the impacts of pandemics such as COVID-19. Indeed, the COVID-19 crisis has reinforced the imperative of building resilience in all of its forms. And resilience to pandemics must be given more prominence in the resilience building architecture of the Caribbean. Even so, the Caribbean can ill afford to lose focus on building resilience to climate change and must continue to invest in climate adaptation and mitigation measures and climate resilient infrastructure. To be sure, the climate crisis remains the greatest existential threat to our humanity. 3, overhaul of the economic system and approach to policy formulation. Coming out of this crisis, the region must jettison the extant economic model that isn't rooted in moral values, which prioritizes profits over people, perpetuates income inequality, retards poverty reduction, undermines environmental sustainability, and treats the deficient GDP per capita numeric as the sacrosanct measure of well-being and development. Of necessity, a new development paradigm is required, one that is based on a systems thinking and multi-sectoral approach, rather than an incoherent, piecemeal, and siloed approach to public policy formulation. A development model that is inclusive and sustainable for current and future generations should prioritize economic, social, and environmental sustainability in an integrated manner where people and their well-being are the linchpin of development. 4, innovation, innovation, innovation. Yeah. The use of technology will become even more important post-COVID-19 because all facets of our lives will be different. Countries would have to operate in more resilient and sustainable ways, possibly with shorter supply chains, higher energy efficiency production, increased digitization of sales and financial services, new modes of work, such as working remotely, greater use of technology in the education system, more online teaching, and in the agriculture sector to ensure food security, as well as in other sectors. Data systems would also have to be substantially improved to normalize the production and dissemination of real-time data and information to inform evidence-based decision-making, among other strategic objectives. 5, new modes of governance and partnerships. Post-COVID-19, a new political culture and model of governance will be required. At minimum, these must promote inclusion and not division. Accordingly, citizens' active participation in the development process must be better facilitated through entrenched and institutionalized arrangements. Protocols and compacts must be established to link citizens more directly to the decision-making process. Moreover, increased emphasis must be placed on broadening citizens' understanding of public policies to promote country ownership of policies, foster national consensus on issues, and deepen trust between the government and citizens. Importantly also, genuine and durable partnerships must be forged among stakeholders in the development process to promote unity and solidarity across different political, gender, class, social, age, and other real or perceived divides. Stronger partnerships within and across countries would be needed. Regarding the latter, the institutions of CARICOM would need to be reshaped or perhaps even reimagined to ensure their resilience and relevance in the next new normal, post-COVID-19. 6, rebirthing of the society. Coming out of the COVID-19 crisis, our human spirits, both individually and collectively, should be renewed. The crisis should teach us the importance of living a life of purpose and living life on purpose. Social interactions should improve, relationships strengthened, compassion bolstered, and joy found in the simple things of life, such as being at one with nature. Indeed, the crisis can mark the rebirthing of our societies with a renewed sense of unity, purpose, and common destiny, where we all live peacefully, safely, lovingly with each other, and in harmony with our natural environment. Finally, the crisis of our times presents opportunities for rebalancing, refocusing, reshaping, and re-energizing systems, frameworks, and underpinning institutions. Stakeholders in the development process, public sector, private sector, civil society organizations, community and faith-based organizations, youth, academia, and individuals must act with unity of purpose, collective clarity, and shared responsibility to shape a more resilient and prosperous Caribbean post-COVID-19. For sure, the COVID-19 crisis is a defining moment of our times as a Caribbean people and region. And we must be willing to leave the familiar without disturbing the essentials. The essentials of safety, security, health, social relationships, equality, a decent living standard, and harmony with nature. Wow. Can anyone have said it better than this lady just did? I don't know. Okay, folks, I'll tell you what. Let me take another break here. And we'll come on back. And I haven't seen anybody show up yet. Let's check and see what's going on. Right after this.
Hi guys, it's Sabrina Francis encouraging you to stay inside and be COVID-19 smart. Do you hear?
Hey, it's Mr. Golden, and I'm urging you, the people of Grenada, KARI, and Petit Martinique, to be COVID-19 smart. Stay home. All you hear?
This is Mandela Links, and I'm encouraging you to remain COVID-19 free. Keep yourself safe and your family by staying home. It's the best way to prevent this virus from spreading. Remember, please remain at your homes so that we all can live to see tomorrow when all this is over. God blessings and one love all the time.
I say, nah, man. Wood, yo, this is the Dan man Lindy telling you to be COVID-19 safe. Stay home. That way we could play a man sooner rather than later. Everything will come to pass. You know the tingo, mass must play. How you mean?
Boom shakalaka, this is Lennox from the West Point family, reminding all Grenadians to be COVID-19 smart. Stay home, it's just for a short time. We will be back on our feet soon, alright? Bless.
All right, folks, I am seeing now, yes, Andre Lewis. Andre, if you're seeing me, just wave. Okay, there he is, Andre. And I'm also seeing Wendy. Wendy, if you're seeing me, make some floppy ears for me, Wendy. Yeah? There goes Wendy. Okay, yeah, so we're going to get started with these two. As I mentioned to you, Mr. Lennox Andrew is not going to be able to join us because he's under the weather this morning. But we are also expecting these two folks who are already here to be joined by Mr. Dunstan Phillip and Mr. Kennedy Roberts. I am going to pay some attention here for just a minute to Facebook. John says, I would do without fresh fruit and vegetables if it meant keeping out COVID, in my humble opinion. That's pertaining to the issue with Ralph Gonzalez and Keith Mitchell. But, you know, he also wanted to know my thoughts about this. You know, I'd rather stay out of this, but I do see what both parties are trying to do. I'm sure there's politics involved. Like we said earlier on, there's politics involved in everything, and that is very, very unfortunate. And I have no doubt that there is politics involved here. However, I don't know how you can fault a prime minister for saying to neighbors who may be in dire need, although I understand there is no food shortage in Petit Martinique at this point, but they're going to need food. And you and I know that the people of Petit Martinique have been neglected badly. I mean badly over the years. Just ask Sharon. Sharon's in here with us every Wednesday. Ask her. She's from Petit Martinique. But at the same time, I also understand Dr. Mitchell. He has an obligation and a responsibility, and from what I see, he is trying to make sure that we curb the spread of this thing. So you can't blame him for being a little bit uptight when somebody says, my borders are open, you can come on in. No. So look at it from both sides, folks. And now, Ryan, please, just remember that I don't have all morning to read your comments. Please make your comments as simple as possible so that I can accommodate not just you, but everybody else on the floor. Break time.
The COVID-19 pandemic is causing untold human suffering and economic devastation around the world. I recently called for an immediate global ceasefire to focus on our shared struggle to overcome the pandemic. I appealed for an end to violence everywhere now. But violence is not confined to the battlefield. For many women and girls, the threat looms largest where they should be safest, in their own homes. And so I make a new appeal today for peace at home and in homes around the world. We know lockdowns and quarantines are essential to suppressing COVID-19, but they can trap women with abusive partners. Over the past weeks, as economic and social pressures and fear have grown, we have seen a horrifying global surge in domestic violence. In some countries, the number of women calling support services has doubled. Meanwhile, healthcare providers and police are overwhelmed and understaffed. Local support groups are paralyzed or short of funds. Some domestic violence shelters are closed, others are full. I urge all governments to make the prevention and redress of violence against women a key part of their national response plans for COVID-19. That means increasing investment in online services and civil society organizations, making sure judicial systems continue to prosecute abusers, setting up emergency warning systems in pharmacies and groceries, declaring shelters as essential services, and creating safe ways for women to seek support without alerting their abusers. Women's rights and freedoms are essential to strong, resilient societies. Together we can and must prevent violence everywhere, from war zones to people's homes, as we work to beat COVID-19.
Alrighty, folks, here we go. This is where we're going to say good morning. First of all, we do have only half of the team on here this morning. If you take a look at the top left, is it left or right of your screen? Mr. Andre Lewis, how are you, Andre?
I'm good, sir.
Good to see you, sir.
Good morning to you. Thank you very much.
I take it you know the lady who is off to your left there. Dr. Wendy Grenade, how are you, Wendy?
Good morning, George. Good morning, Andre, and good morning to your listeners and viewers.
Before we go any further, Wendy, I just want to say that I don't know if you heard me reading that piece from your sister a little while ago, KARI. Profound, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. I want to really commend her because I thought it was a very sound piece that really does pull it all together. So I'm so proud of her, and I really want to congratulate her on that piece.
And it was so in tune with what we intend to do this morning. She's looking at the way forward while a lot of people are dwelling on what's happening right now. She's looking on the way forward. And boy, I would really like her to come in and chat with us one of these days. If you can arrange that for us, we would appreciate it. Now, I'll tell you what. We're supposed to have Lennox Andrew with us this morning, but he called just before I went on the air to say that he's not feeling too well this morning and therefore he's not going to be able to join us. I'm also hoping that Dunstan Campbell, who is a senator and also an agriculturalist, will be joining us, and Mr. Kennedy Roberts, who is a lecturer down at SGU, and we know that Kennedy is very, very obsessed with Grenada's healthcare system. What I'd like to do is have the two of you start a discussion, which would give me some time to get on the phone and see if I can track down these other characters and make sure that they get all hooked up. So let me start with you, Wendy. You volunteered, if you will, to talk with us about education. Let's start by taking a look at what is happening to the education right now in light of this virus, and then your way forward. And then later on, after you have said your piece, Andre has said his piece, and the others have said their pieces, we can all get into free for all. So let's start with you, Wendy. Hello. Where did Wendy go? Hello?
Yes, good morning. You hearing me
good.
now?
Yes, we are.
Right, good morning. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation. And I want to say good morning to all the viewers and listeners in Grenada and beyond. A special good morning to my family and to my UWI students and other friends in Grenada. Before I address the question of education, if you would permit me, George, I think I want to thank all the frontline workers who are really fighting a battle against an invisible enemy. I want our nurses, our doctors, our police officers. I want to say thanks to them and hope that they remain safe and well. And we have many Grenadians in the diaspora, particularly, who have lost loved ones. I want to convey my condolences to them, those who are infected and affected with this disease. Before I go to education, George, I wanted to, in a very broad way, speak about three interlocking crises. Because, Andrea, we can't think about COVID-19 as a crisis in itself. I think the first crisis is the COVID-19, and it has led to a health crisis that includes but transcends the health sector. I think it has drastically affected lives and it has decimated livelihoods, and it is devastating societies as governments all over the world seek to find solutions in this war against an invisible enemy. I think the scale and intensity of the pandemic is putting additional strain on already fragile health systems globally. So this is a crisis that nobody planned for. But the second interrelated crisis, what I am referring to as COVID-20, would be the global economic virus. And it is undisputed that the world economy will plunge into deep recession, perhaps akin to the 1930s Great Depression. If we follow the news in the United States, for example, during the first week of April, 6.6 million people were seeking unemployment benefits in the United States. And as we follow the news, for example, the Associated Press was doing a comparison between what happened in the Great Depression and what is happening now. And in that article, it was arguing that it took 44 weeks for unemployment figures to reach where they are. It only happened in a couple of weeks in this crisis. So we are seeing a serious economic fallout that would lead to food and energy crises. Financial and trade flows will be affected, agricultural production, remittances, obviously. The construction sector, the tourism sector would be affected. And this is expected to negatively impact employment, income, growth, and investment. Andrea, you are involved in the trade union movement, and I'm sure you have to be thinking about ways to deal with labor issues that would come as a result of this. So this is a second crisis that is very much related to the COVID pandemic. And the third crisis, as KARI said, the climate crisis is not going anywhere. The health crisis and the economic crisis, these are ongoing against the backdrop of a global climate crisis. So I just wanted to sort of frame the discussion in a broad sense, so we understand that the global pandemic is happening, but it is interlocked with other crises. Yeah, so Andrea, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Part of the issue that will be here, it is not just economic shock, but it's a shock to customer behavior, business models. Yes, the psychological impact on everything. And I like the way, as I said, that you have framed it, and therefore I want to adopt your general outlook. I also want to identify with your expression of condolences to the people who have been directly impacted and affected, our colleagues and comrades out in the diaspora. I also want to identify with your tribute to the frontline workers, but permit me to just expand a bit, because you have quite correctly identified doctors, police, etc. But I want to just dig a bit further and to highlight, for instance, the maids and cleaners at our public health facilities. I want to highlight our dock workers who are out on the front line ensuring that our cargo comes to us. I want to salute the lab technicians and all the others who make themselves available on the front line. And therefore, ask for us to pay our tribute to them. I want to salute our pilots on the port who are bringing in the ships, who will be the first, in most instances, to engage the people from outside of Grenada, and therefore, exposes themselves. We want to salute them. And, it is in the same context, because while we are at home, all of these people are outside confronting the unseen enemy. But likewise, I want to commend the businesses, the managers that are making services available and are helping us in this particular period. At the same time, the leaders within government and the other committees that are faced with this unknown enemy, and having in these trying times, as you have indicated, it is unknown. It's something that we have not been prepared for, but has been given it their shot. And I know that many of us will say that different things could be done, but I think we need to salute them for everything that they have been doing at the moment. I will develop on some of these things after. Dr. Grenada, I too want to express thanks to Dr. KARI, your sister, for this thought out article. It is very timely, and to express that I know of her involvement in the Ministry of Finance. She's a very hard worker. That's how I've known her, and I know we are blessed in Grenada and the region for having people like you and your sister and the other frontline workers who can help us through this particular period. If I may, Mr. Grant, just permit me, I want to pay tribute to
Andre.
two extraordinary comrades. Yes, sir.
How does Wendy rate Wendy and I rate Mr. Grant? Andre, we're going to have to put you across my lap. George.
I will try. First of all, ask my mom and grandmother for forgiveness, and I will try. Okay, I'm George. Just let me, because we have lost two extraordinary people. I don't think it has to do with COVID. Comrade Lingham Samuel, his mom passed away on the 7th of April. Comrade Lingham Samuel was the treasurer of town. His mom, Cicely Samuel, extraordinary human being, one who was involved in the labor movement at the level of the management committee of the Technical and Allied Workers Union, who served on the General Council of the Union, who basically had the May-Day preparations of our union in our hands, cooking at our home, and just leading the troops. I want to pay, on behalf of the Technical and Allied Workers Union and the wider working movement of Grenada. Tribute to her and her family. To Lingham, I say stay strong, comrade. To Lawrence, I say strong. And to Lorna, her daughter, I say strong, and to all her relatives and friends. You know that this is not a normal time, and therefore funerals are restrictive, but we say so long. And just let me go regional. The comrade Kumal Chan from out of the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, who died, I think, on the 8th or thereabouts of this month. Comrade Chan was a long-standing General Secretary of GAU, who rose to the rank of President of the Union. He was also a member of the Federation of Free Trade Unions, and also a Vice President of the Federation of Independent Trade Union of Guyana. He has made a sterling contribution to the regional and international labor movement, and in particular, Grenada, through the Technical and Allied Workers Union, when in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Ivan, he personally ensured that his union were able to mobilize tremendous support for the members of TAU and the wider Grenadian population by sending rice, galvanized tarpaulins, etc. And he personally marshaled that. And therefore, we want to thank these two comrades for their sterling contributions. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to pay tribute to them.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Yes, Andre, I also want to do the same, to join you in paying tributes to two fallen comrades. George, while you were trying to mobilize the others, we were talking about what I framed as three interlocking crises. The global pandemic, which is a health crisis, but it goes beyond the health sector, and we were talking about the economic crisis that would ensue and the climate crisis that is with us. I don't know if you want us to now speak about some state responses in terms of, responses to these crises.
Wendy, any conversation you and Andre can have would certainly be an asset to me. It would give me some time to try and get these folks on. I just spoke to Dunstan. He is trying to get set up, and so is Kennedy. So please, you two just take it away, and we'll be back with you whenever we can.
Okay. So, Andrea, we looked at a sort of broad frame, and I was happy that you included the maids in the hospital, the dock workers, and some of the toilers that sometimes we miss in terms of ordinary workers who keep the machinery going. And I want to join you in also thanking all of them for the work that they have been doing. Now, in terms of the response, this is a very complex period, what I like to call a multiplicity of complexities. And throughout the world, states have responded differently. There have been varied responses. And the very difficult question, in my view, for policymakers was and still is, Andre, how to balance the need to save lives while protecting livelihoods. It is a fundamental question. Or how to balance economic security with health security, with food security, and national security. Now, some governments privileged economic security while others privileged national security. Yet others are trying to find the right balance, making adjustments in a very fluid situation. I was quite heartened to see Cuba, for example, being able to send doctors to as far away as Italy and strengthening our health systems in the Caribbean through doctors and nurses. And I really want to commend the government and people of Cuba for continuing to be so humanitarian and having this internationalist outlook. I also want to commend the government and people of Grenada. Now, these are very difficult times. But I think when I look comparatively through the Caribbean, there was a very proactive approach in terms of closing schools and closing borders in the very early phases of the pandemic. So I really want to commend the government of Grenada for the decisions that the government took through legislation and policy. Now, the policy response has not been perfect. For example, Andre, I have a difficulty with self-quarantine. And I wish that there was a common place that people could have been put to be quarantined. It has not been perfect, but I think the government, comparatively, relative to some other Caribbean countries, for example, did a lot of right things very early to contain community spread. And the challenge now is to keep on course. Everything is not perfect. We saw lines in the supermarkets yesterday, and I think that was unnecessary. But I must say, though, governments can legislate, they can implement policies, but citizens also have to be responsible. I am of the view, Andre, that the war against COVID-19 would be won by a combination of political decisions, public health responses, supported by behavioral modifications. And that is where the real fight is. And I believe that the dilemma is this: what we need to do to survive COVID-19 goes against how we know how to live. Andre, I mean, social gatherings, whether we're talking about funerals, whether we're talking, I mean, today's Easter Sunday and we're not in church physically. Rum shops, going in the market on Saturdays. That's how we know how to live. That naturally, that's part of our daily lives. Yet physical distancing is what we must learn to do to survive COVID-19. So we have to unlearn certain entrenched cultural and social behaviors to successfully combat this pandemic. And that is why, in my view, state responses must be firm and decisive. And I want to put on the table for discussion: individual freedom at this time must give way to order for collective well-being. I feel strongly about that. Individual freedom must give way to order for collective well-being. So, Andre, I would want to hear your comments on that, the sort of social and behavioral norms that are natural to us, but which we must unlearn to survive in a very, very difficult period. And I think that's the challenge.
As you posited, yes, hello, are you hearing me? As you posited in your opening in terms of the global approach, we held a discussion the 9th of April, and that was made up of Caribbean people, Latin American people, Central America, through Union Network International, examining some of these issues and the information coming out. And that was, as of the 9th of April, that about 81% of the world workforce was on lockdown or on partial lockdown. So we need to put that in a context in which we are addressing. And therefore, the issue for us in the labor movement, we share most of your views, has to do with what we call phase one, which has started and is continuing, the issue of staying alive as best as we could. The issue of staying alive in the context of an unknown enemy, as COVID-19 is, requires certain harsh and firm decision-making and realities. And we agree, because that's what solidarity is all about. The labor movement has been constantly preaching this. So welcome to solidarity. When we say a good shepherd look after one lost sheep. And therefore, in our approach, we agree that a collective good supersedes that of the individual, while at the same time, you are trying to ensure that there is a minimum condition under which you will try to ensure that no individual falls through. We have to ensure that. And because the state and the world as a whole, to varying degrees, were not prepared for this COVID-19, it means that in our small island developing states, we had to take certain drastic measures with resources that we do not have. Let me just make the point, with resources that we do not have, which would ensure that while we try to preserve our lives by the limiting of the spreading or infection of COVID-19, which would allow us to play some catch-up games. Catch up in the sense of trying to get some equipment. And I know we can go into the issue, as you have rightly addressed. Our healthcare system over the years has negatively impacted us where we are today, right? And for those who have not paid attention to it in the past, when we have been calling, for instance, for the nurses to have more human resources in the hospital to ensure that the nurses are given permanent contracts of employment rather than having contract workers, rather than having a run on the health system. These are issues that we have raised in the past, which has now come to negatively impact us. But having said that, what was necessary for the state to have done, as we try to limit people's movement to avoid the spread of COVID, once we identify its presence in the country, was to give us a breathing space to be able to get testing equipment, was to give us the space to be able to provide the much needed quarantine, which should have been done before. The labor movement in the early days of this discussion were clamoring for the establishment of the relevant quarantine facilities that would have minimized the need to have people on self-quarantine, because we understand the issue of discipline or the lack of discipline thereof. And we also understood that unless you have proper systems in place to monitor and to enforce the restrictions of individuals, the question of self-quarantine would be a difficult one. And what was needed to have taken place is that if someone were to be self-quarantined, there ought to have been a system in place to ensure that they would get the basic needs. So for instance, some of the challenges may have been that while I am self-quarantined at home, how do I procure the necessities that I have to use? So we are in agreement, and I'm in agreement, that we needed that sort of firm leadership. And it depends a lot, and I want to make an appeal for us to continue exercising that level of discipline. I know that there are challenges in relation to getting stock in some instances, but at the same time, it requires a change in some of our behavior. It may mean, for instance, going a longer period without fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. It may mean that, because that cannot last forever. Of being completely restricted will not last forever, but it will give us an opportunity. And by saying us, I'm referring to us locally and even internationally, because do not forget that there is a crazy rush to find a vaccine and or medication to help treat and or minimize the impact of COVID. So the restrictions are necessary, in my view, which should give us that breathing space. The aspect of social, well, I don't want to say social distancing, because only 2 days ago we were connected right through the world through Zoom, and that was social connection. Physical distancing is absolutely important. And what is needed for us is to appreciate that there is that no pain, no gain. There'll be pain for a while. But it is worth it. And therefore, whereas it is normal for us to be engaged physically in terms of our close proximity, we have to keep pounding it to all of ourselves, because it can be difficult at times, that we should be guided by the professionals, by the medical personnel, not by the politicians. The politicians are there for policy positions, because had it just been for politicians, we see what would have been happening internationally, especially in the US, which a lot of people look towards. But we can learn from what our comrades and colleagues in China do. And therefore, I want to thank our Chinese counterparts and colleagues for the contributions that they have recently to our healthcare system, and also Venezuela. I recognize that Venezuela may not have been mentioned as yet, but Venezuela faces right now a threat from the United States. But at the same time, they can find it within themselves, like Cuba, to be there for us in the region. And I want to use this opportunity right now to give our solidarity to the people of Venezuela and to call for the Caribbean region to remain a zone of peace. Because Dr. Grenade and others, we cannot fight this pandemic and its outcome if we have to be constantly engaged in spending money to national defense and military, etc. And every day we wake up, there's some fight from our colleagues in the north about trying to determine for us in the region who our friends should be. When, for instance, our friends in the region, Cuba, Venezuela, etc., are the ones who are always willing and ready and demonstrated a willingness to assist us.
All right, I'll tell you what, folks, I am happy, very happy to report that we have now been joined by two more of our colleagues. Middle on the top row there is Mr. Kennedy Roberts. We're going to let him say hi in just a wee bit. And then on the bottom row there next to me is Mr. Senator Dunstan Phillip. Thank you all. I'm glad that you're in. Kennedy, since you have been here before Dunstan, why don't you just chime in and give your very brief assessment of where we stand right now as a result of COVID-19, and then in the next hour we're going to get into a free-for-all about the way forward. Right. So let's hear you, Kennedy.
Certainly. Good morning, Georgia, and good morning, colleagues. It's a pleasure interacting with you all today, and good morning again to all our viewers, listeners. And start by saying a happy Easter Sunday to everybody. This is the day we celebrate as the risen Christ, and this is usually an opportunity for new beginnings. And this situation with COVID in Grenada and in the world is undoubtedly a new way in which we've all had to deal with our Easter celebrations. So this COVID-19 has really changed the way in which we are living, and I doubt it will ever go back to what we have been accustomed to. I also want to start by just framing something and acknowledging that when we talk about health, the standard definition we use is not merely the absence of disease, but a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So as we talk about the health implication, we tend to focus on the persons who are getting sick and who contract the virus and who need attention. But we also have to realize in this period that our mental health is being bombarded in a manner in which we have not been accustomed to. So we have to look at measures that address our mental well-being and our social well-being, the way we interact with each other. We realize we use the term social distancing, and I agree with Brother Andre, it's physical distancing. So we have to acknowledge that this is real COVID, and we have to understand that there are certain requirements or certain recommendations that are being made, and I believe the world has agreed that the staying indoors and really isolating ourselves for this period of time is undoubtedly an approach we have to take, but we have to strike that balance then in terms of how we deal with other aspects of life. So I'll start by just introducing this, but I want to get into some details as we progress.
All right, and perhaps now we can hear from you, Dunstan.
Well, good morning to all, and sorry for the late start, but it was unavoidable. Yes. We now look at the situation with agriculture, and as it seems to us, as it seems to most agriculturists, we were the forgotten many. Most farmers in this crisis, what really troubled them was the way that they were looked at. It seems as if they were always catching up. We understand that we have to be inside. We understand about physical distancing. We understand all those things. But we can't understand why that food security, the production of food, was not considered an essential part of the mix. We were, I'm totally disappointed when we were told that we will not be able to go to take care of our animals in the first place. Then we were told that we will not be able to get petrol to move from A to B. It seems that everything came in from behind. It also brought out another farmers need to realize that we have to get together in farmers groups. It is a wonderful experience following the MNIB chart where farmers were explaining their problems. And I think it's out of that involvement that the powers to be really realized what was happening with the agricultural sector. And I thank all the farmers who really contributed to that part of it. I want to thank the involvement of the poultry president of the Poultry Association, Philip, who did yeoman service in getting the poultry sector and the agricultural sector. Because when we talked about getting gas, it wasn't gas for only to go to our poultry pens, but it was to get our pumps and to get our movement from A to B. So I think that, yes, COVID-19 has really opened up some opportunities for us that we must capture, we must seize immediately after this time, after the storm is over. And we cannot do like what we've done after Ivan and say, okay, crisis is it's a wonderful thing not to be wasted. And instead, we cannot waste farmers, farmers and officials cannot waste COVID-19. Thank you.
All right, Dunstan, thank you very much for those introductory remarks. We'll get back to you and Wendy and Andre and Kennedy in just a wee bit. But first, let's pay some bills.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And GrenLec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
GrenLec, energizing our Grenada.
Conveniently located in the GrenadaBroadcast Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Granadas will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep,
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Alrighty, folks, we are back with my guests on this Sunday morning. Well, at least 3 of them. I see one has mysteriously disappeared. Hopefully, he'll be back momentarily. There he is. We do have Andre Lewis representing the trades unions. In the middle of the top there, we see Mr. Vincent Roberts, a lecturer down at SGU, and then Professor Wendy GRENADE. Pardon me? Pardon me, Andre?
Kennedy's called Vincent. I tell him, leave it at that.
Professor Wendy GRENADE, Professor of Political Science at UE in Barbados. And at the bottom row with me there, Mr. Dunstan, Senator Dunstan Phillip, who's also an agriculturalist. Now,
But you keep changing people's names and surnames today.
Pardon me?
You keep changing people's names and surnames. What problem Mr. Campbell is a Philip, and I didn't know. And Kennedy was Vincent, and I didn't know.
Oh, well, yeah. There's a lot going on in here today, Andre. I wish you were sitting here to help me punch all the buttons, then you'll understand.
Yes.
Folks, I think you all know, COVID-19, yeah. I think you all know that an integral component of these programs is the public reaction. And we have been a little bit negligent in sharing with you some of the comments that have been coming in. So let me do so right now. First of all, Trini62 says, having no food shortage and having access to food are 2 different things. She also goes on to say, it is the general scientific consensus that fruits and veggies are key to building immunity and defeating this virus. Both are available in Grenada. Find creative ways of getting it to people. Ryan says, Dr. Wendy, you are so right in that COVID-19 viral pandemic has us in several social, economic, and political crises. Claude Victor says, George, maybe, no, okay, we'll skip that. Trini says, thank you, Andre, for highlighting the non-professional but equally important essential workers. Too often, we forget those. Big clap for them. Let's see here. Claude Victor says, the doctor raises a make point. Claude, please, take your time, please. Please, help me. The doctor raises a make poignant point. Mighty CV-19 causes a reassessment of current social norms. Have the new normals in the Caribbean tilted too far, that it is now harmful to the society at large? Try and make heads or tails of that, folks. Ryan says there will be a reassessment of current social norms after the COVID-19 pandemic. Who's up next?
All right. If you want me to, I am anxious to say a few little things, Brother George. So if you don't mind, I would
Please
add a
do,
few.
Kennedy, please do.
All right. Now, we're into April, and we have to acknowledge that the government has been taking certain measures to address the COVID situation in Grenada. Of course, with the technology, we're observing what is happening throughout the world, and in the region, we're seeing different approaches being taken, and we cannot fully assess the benefits of one or the other until we have come through this to assess it. So, for example, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they do not have the lockdown, people are moving about freely, but they're being told to practice the physical distance and wear the mask and so on. We don't know if that is going to backfire on them and they might end up having more cases later on. But we have to observe that their approach, while it's different, is having a lot less mental stress for the population in terms of getting the basic groceries. Hardwares are open, gas stations are open, and they're doing it differently. In Barbados, some of us might have heard Prime Minister's Motley presentation last night, and they outlined certain days when different persons can access goods, groceries, other services outside there. Banks are open. In Grenada, our approach is a total lockdown, and we have not had banks open for a long time, and a lot of people, including myself, need to do certain things physically in the bank. For example, my credit card expired, and I realized I went to buy something and it's expired, and say, oh shucks, but the physical one is in the bank. So there are people who need to access banking services in the bank, and I think we have to give consideration to looking at that. So we have to see that the approach being taken is different, but we have to all agree that the lockdown, the isolation to see how the virus is going to die out is an approach that is being considered necessary. So the health situation is such that we have to realize that you need a more all-inclusive approach. As of now, the government has been talking about the approach they've been using, but they're not involving the key stakeholders like it's being done in Barbados. So, for example, I'm aware that the Chamber of Commerce has not really been involved or been contacted to discuss issues relating to businesses. The government, the Prime Minister met with Sister Franca Bernardine, our political leader. Certain recommendations were made. He invited persons to join the various committees, the Health, the Economic, and the Social Committee. We responded. On the 3rd of April, we got a reply from his ministry saying, okay, we have the information pertaining to your 3 nominees. We've submitted their names to the various chairpersons of the committee. Today is the 12th. We have not heard anything. They have my phone number. They have my email address. They have not contacted either of the 3 of us that were recommended. So the way in which things are being done is a bit almost like a secret society. However, when it comes to these public health issues, there is a lot of benefit to being open, being transparent, being factual, being professional, sharing information based on facts and not hiding. Because once you start hiding information and people realize that you're not given the total truth, you're going to lose credibility. And trust is an important aspect in this. So while the NDC is giving a lot of support to the government in terms of working with them to address this, we're realizing that there are certain things that are critical. And if we remain silent, the public is going to be saying, what are you all doing? So I really believe that the government should reach out to the persons that were recommended to be on these committees and get us involved and get other stakeholders involved in this process. I don't know if, Andre, if the trade union is involved and you're participating in what is going on now, but it would be good, and Senator Campbell also. But the reality is we don't feel as if this is a national approach to deal with it, and there's going to be burnout. The few persons who are in the front line doing these things every day, they're going to burn out. And there are going to be loopholes. And I believe the guy who left the country being positive is an indication that there are loopholes that could be tightened. So I think we need a more national approach to this. And again, Sister Franca has been advocating for a daily press conference where you, on a daily basis, not just tell people how many positive cases, but reassure the population and deal with the other aspects, especially the mental and social well-being aspect. So I would like to see
We lost you, Kennedy. We lost your audio.
Oh, sorry. I think my antics touched the mute button. But anyway, yes, we need to have a more all-inclusive approach to this and work together to address this as a nation.
All right. Kennedy, yes. You know, I have heard an awful lot of criticisms about the way the administration is handling the current crisis. I'm not going to stand here and defend the administration, but I think we need to acknowledge the fact that this is something that is unprecedented, and I don't think anybody was prepared. I mean, not even the mighty United States was prepared to address what has descended upon us. And we also just don't have the resources here that somewhere like the United States or England or wherever, resources they may have to handle these. Having said that, there are a couple of things that really, really concern me about the approach of the administration, even though I may seem to be defending them. There's an attitude of arrogance that comes across. There's an attitude of, hey, listen, it's my way or no way. You know, what we say goes. And there are a lot of people out there, very talented, very creative people who have so much to contribute and could really help to avoid so many of the pitfalls that we are currently facing. If only these folks would dump that arrogant, belligerent attitude and reach out and accept some of the help that is available. I just had to get that off my chest.
And you see, George, that is why the process is extremely important. And Prime Minister Motley said something last night that resonated with me. She said, in times of crisis, that is the time you need to be focused on your approach, so you can really have the consultation, you can have the dialogue, you can have the analysis needed to come up with recommendations that are necessary. And I know this is a new situation for all of us, but we have to have an approach to involve the trade unions, the Chamber of Commerce, the Employers Federation, the other political parties, and do this in a broad-based way. I know you want to do things quick, but when you reach the stage like now, where weeks and weeks and the level of involvement is minimal, you realize that we could be doing it differently. So your point is well taken. We have a lot of people who are willing to contribute. So when we talk about resources, it's not just our money, financial resources, but it's the human resources, and that's where I think we're not tapping into.
Wendy?
Yes, I just wanted to come in here, and thanks, Kennedy, for sharing with us in that way. And in principle, of course, I always believe in consensus, because we need consensus as a pillar of governance. But you know, the grass is always greener, because I live in Barbados, and my Barbadian colleagues and friends would say to me, how is it that Grenada knows how to do it so well? And I say to them, you know, Grenada has been seasoned through crises, through time. So when we were locking down the airports and you still had tourists up and down in this country, people were saying to me, Wendy, why is it that Grenada does it better? Why is it that Grenada may be a best case from all of this? Because when you compare how the Barbados government approached it, the airport is still open. When you compare how the Barbados government was very much focusing and prioritizing economic security, livelihoods. We have 68 cases here with 4 deaths. In Grenada, we have 13 with 1 absent, with no deaths. Although it's too early, as you said, Kennedy, and when we get through it, we would know. There are loopholes in the Grenada process. There are loopholes in the Barbados process, in the Vincentian process, in the Kittitian, in the United States, and in Britain. We have to say what is working, and how do we find ways in a very fluid situation to ensure that certain fundamentals are put in place. Inclusion and participation, Kennedy, I agree with you. Very, very important. Last night when I heard the Prime Minister of this country says that the former Minister of Finance, Christian Clare, and the former Prime Minister Wayne Arthur would be involved in the strategic team. I was quite happy. I was quite happy when I saw Prime Minister Mitchell meet with the leader of the NDC. I agree with you that that should then go to a next level where there is actual involvement and inclusion. So I agree with you. So I think we can look at all the different models and ask, what fundamentally do we need to put in place? There must be openness and transparency. Every time I sit in Barbados and I hear a press conference, whether here or in Grenada, I am happy to see politicians engaging people and public health professionals engaging people. I think the crisis demands that they speak to citizens, that they listen to citizens, and that they act and change direction as the case may require. But these are very difficult times. And I think the World Health Organization Director General said to Donald Trump, when this week Trump was blaming him for calling it wrong. And he said, if you want to see more body bags, politicize this. And I don't want us at all to politicize it. This is a time where we need ideas, we need suggestions, we need to be praying for our leaders. We need to be asking for wisdom for them. I don't want to be a Minister of Health in this season. It's difficult work. And I think we have to suspend, even as we must critique, even as we must call out governments when they do things wrong. I have a problem with the self-isolation, as I said earlier. That needs to fix. But at the same time, the magnitude of the crisis requires consensus and maturity. It's no time, I think, for us to be, and I'm not saying you're doing that, Kennedy. I think you've been quite positive in terms of how you've helped us to understand this. I want to see genuine inclusion. So I agree that after the government and the head of the opposition, not opposition, the head of the NDC have met, we want to see follow-up action from that. That is very important. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm also saying that when we look comparatively, the grass is always greener. Because I've been here for 3 weeks and I'm not going outside because I don't like what's outside. People up and down the street. And I think it's the more laissez-faire approach. And I think Grenada had a more preventative approach than what I'm seeing in some other Caribbean countries. Granted, there are loopholes that must be fixed. Yeah, so that's my contribution to that point.
I appreciate that, but later on I want you to talk about the mental side of it and how we're approaching it.
Andre?
Let me just jump in here because Kennedy and Wendy, I am in agreement generally. And Kennedy, just to let you know that Labour has not been officially involved. Labour has not been involved, which is very concerning for us. But for us, the important thing is the COVID-19. And we not be processed or in the habit of just making noise, even if we are disappointed in some approaches. Our not, because there's a bigger issue outside there. If we do not manage this crisis properly, because it is a health issue, it is not just a social issue, but it is something that if we create a high level of dissatisfaction outside it, and if we create an atmosphere where people become rebellious to the leadership that is existing at the moment, it will all redound to the negative for all of us. So we have taken the approach that even if we are not satisfied, labor is always there in crisis. I mean, when we did the structural adjustment program, and labor was required for the IMF and others to give Grenada the whatever thumbs up and necessary assistance, we were reached out to. But we have not been spoken to in this matter. We haven't left out. I want to put this as a historical fact, but not create any issue because you have raised it. So we have taken the approach that let us allow those who are running the issues. They have excluded us, yes, but we will give assistance wherever we could. We will make observations, we will make recommendations, and we will not remove ourselves, even if we are not officially invited. So we have been making recommendations, not necessarily publicly, but through correspondences, etc., to the relevant authorities. Because this year is bigger than all of us. And in this period, it is important to have as much cooperation and more cooperation than is normal in usual time in a period like this. As was indicated by you, none of us is absolutely certain of what is the best thing to do, but at least some steps have been taken. One thing we are sure of is that the social protocol and the tripartite arrangement is absolutely necessary, was necessary, ought to have been put in place. It was not put in place, but let us not harbor over this, right? We have registered officially our complaint to the government. We wrote them complaining about our non-involvement, but we did not go publicly and fight the matter. Because it is important that in this period, there's a high level of uncertainty and anxiety among the workforce. Because as we speak, quite a number of businesses are not sure what will happen to them tomorrow. As we speak, a number of workers are not sure what will happen to them tomorrow. We in the labor movement is not sure, but what we do know is what is required is an extreme level of cooperation, working together, flexibility. This is not a case where winner takes all. And if I may just take something from Dr. KARI's piece, which falls extremely in line with our thought process, is that this is one of the times when we need to also recognize that it is not profit before people, but it is for all of us. First of all, for us in the labor movement, is the preservation of life. Let me make that point, is the preservation of life. I'm absolutely confident in our Grenadian people that we are resilient enough to survive. So it's the preservation of life, then what we call the preservation of jobs. We want to ensure that businesses are able to survive and that we can protect our members' employment relationship. You can recover if your employment relation with your employer continues 2 months from now, a month from now, 6 months from now. So it is absolutely necessary for us to be in this together. And therefore, just to highlight, just to back up a bit from where Dr. GRENADE started, and I will just put it, we need to look at the resources that are for the enterprise in terms of the enterprise response as a business places. We need to look at the government support for enterprise, and in this case, we also speak about the social assistance and the need to ensure that workers have some form of income. The issue of the enterprise itself response, because we need to also look at this on a business by business basis, because it is not all companies that are experiencing a negative impact right now. There are some companies that are doing extremely well. Then the issue of the workers' response. What compromises do we make in this period? How long do we make those compromises for? And what are the opportunities? So Dr. Campbell, one of the opportunities for that we see for a number of farmers, especially farmers, is to be able to do mapping, where you get the contact numbers of your friends, relatives, and try to find out their friends and their relatives, and you establish contact with people and find out what they require, be it on a weekly or every 2 week basis. What packages do they require? Lettuce, cabbage, tomatoes, but at the same time, yes, the farmers need to go out and tend to their crops, but in a responsible manner. So there's a business opportunity, and it gives that opportunity for us to do things in an organized way, while at the same time doing everything to minimize the spread of the disease. And for us, it's the preservation of life. So whatever it is, everything we do, we must go back to that central issue. How am I impacting on preserving life, preserving health?
All right, Dunstan, you've been sitting very quietly. It's your turn, sir.
I sitting very quietly listening to the points raised. I agree to very much. In fact, I want to start off with the one Andrew just mentioned. And out of the crisis we are seeing, even though we have difficulty in getting our food that's already grown distributed to people, We are seeing the marketing, what I call the individual marketing of produce to a collective number of persons in the community, and it's working. In fact, it was there, but because of this difficulty, we are now seeing that it is now being used by several farmers. This is one of the opportunities that we would hold on to as we move forward. The other point I want to raise is I have been hearing, from the other folks, Andrea and Kennedy and others, the involvement of their organizations sitting on the table. One of the most disappointing things for me was the fact that agriculture was not involved. It's not on the table. We have to respond to investment and every time they are made, and then go to try to get something from the. Why are we not on the table? Why are we not? I think that, I think so, and several people would say so, that in Grenada, agriculture has to be an essential sector. And we are seeing that this is not so. We are not getting the respect that we are supposed to get. And we will continue to fight, we will continue to struggle to reach there. The other thing that I wanted to say is that this crisis is not yet over. Its social and economic impacts are already being felt. We're already seeing some people without any money to purchase food or to get the essentials to live. Because basically an agriculturalist lives from hand to mouth, right? And if, for instance, for the last 2 weeks, there are persons who have no money, no food, and some of them are willing to break the curfew, which is something that I wouldn't recommend. So I feel sometimes when I sit here and those pronouncements, I don't think people understand how the sector, the other half, and I think that going forward, we need to demonstrate to them the importance of our sector, right? Food, employment, health, all of these are areas where agriculture play an extremely important, agriculture and fisheries. I keep on leaving out the fishes, but agriculture and fisheries play an extremely important role. And when I go to those guys and I talk, they just say, Dunstan, listen, man, those guys ain't even thinking about us. They are not, and this is sad. This is sad for a sector that contributes so much to the economy, and yet very little respect. So George, in going forward, I am just there. I'm expectancy, waiting for something to happen. I am not too very, how should I put it? I'm not too very sure that would get much, but we will try. I'm sorry, because I just from, in fact, I was walking out in the fields there into this. So I'm a bit totally prepared. But George, that's it.
All right, George, you on mute this time.
Yes, George is on mute this time. Thank you, Kennedy. Okay, Dunstan, we appreciate what you're saying. Let me take a little break here, and we're going to come back and continue with you guys.
I think you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
All right, a couple of comments here. First of all, Ryan says, Dunstan, you are right on agricultural food security. Dunstan seems to have temporarily disappeared again. And Tessa Barry says, a concern is the amount of persons who are dependent upon remittances and from family members experiencing the same thing. How are we helping the vulnerable now and in the future? Who's going to take that on, Dunstan or Wendy?
I wouldn't want to go with that. Kennedy.
All right. But one of the things that I've been given some serious thought to, and not only now, but over the last decades, and we haven't really been addressing it adequately, is the whole issue of social security. We have an NIS that is our social security institution, but the concept of social security is much broader than what NIS does currently. We realize now that we're in this situation, there are a lot of persons who are not registered with the NIS. A lot of them, especially the self-employed, a lot of the taxi men, bus drivers, and so, who are now looking for some sort of support. One of the requirements is that you need to be registered with the NIS. How many of them have been paying Social Security? So I think there's a need for a deeper analysis of the role of the NIS and some of the government programs that is in the Ministry of Social Services, like the SEED program, for example. I think you have to, in a small country like ours, look and see, should all that be brought under our social security institution? Should the NIS develop grant writing skills and look for funding outside of contributions to help with our social security needs and social development? So I think this is something that we need to get into and have some dialogue, because again, the way social services are politicized, the way we know historically, no matter which political party is in office, you hear the issues of the government being political and giving their supporters more than their fair share. We have to depoliticize a lot of these issues, and COVID has come upon us, and we have to approach this thing in a non-partisan way. And that is why the NDC has, from very early, been given the support to the government in terms of what is happening. Although, as I said earlier, that doesn't say we are agreeing with everything. And a lot of our supporters are saying, you need to be saying more. And we're saying we need to be looking at the implication of this COVID and give the government the free way to do it. However, we have been suggesting, we have been saying things, and unfortunately, we can't be totally silent. But yes, we're supporting the government's initiative, but we would like to see other things like involving the social partners and involving other people, so that those who are there now, as I said, they're burning out. They're doing things now that they're a small group, from what I understand. It's not many people who are involved in the decision making, and I think this is one area that we have room for improvement.
All right. Somebody here says, in times of crisis, innovation and resourcefulness of the people must come into play. You cannot wait on government if said government is a private club instead of a representative of the people. Ryan says here, Tessa Berry, good point. Remittances from the diaspora to Grenada have dried up. We're going through hell in the United States. Andre?
Yes, George. Interestingly enough, one of my colleagues in the U.S. Only late last night communicated with me, and in a joking manner, but which is deep in my view, basically said, well, look, you will have to stand up a barrel for me. Right? And I responded by saying, sure, I will do once the borders are open in the U.S. And as we speak here, I know we are looking at Grenada, but remember we started off by indicating that this is a global crisis. And whereas also the U.S. is in a better position, because I think they had 2.3 or thereabout $1 trillion that they had as a stimulus package, and looking to advance more. The result of the debt figures in the U.S., especially in New York, shows that the issue of class and the social structure has impacted different classes and so differently. So that even if a number of workers in the States may get $1,000 a month or whatever it is, there are some who will be left out of that network. And quite a number of these people who may be left out may be some of the very set that have been remitting funds to us here in the Caribbean and in Grenada. We have to be our people's people, not just our brothers, but our brothers and sisters. And what we must not allow COVID to do is to change that concern and care that we have had for our people in our society. I know it is a bit difficult now because we are expected to be on lockdown, and some of us may very well take to heart the aspect of staying away so that we may not even be seeing some of the plight that some of our people are going outside there. So we need to call on all of us who can reach out to give some assistance. But one of the lessons that may come out of this for us as a nation, nationally, is that we must always be prepared. Once we are employed, once we have some form of income, once we are gainfully employed, self-employed or not, to be able to put aside something to the national insurance scheme. Sometimes many of us see this as, and I want to be extremely blunt here because that's the best way we in the labor movement know about representing workers. Sometimes we see the 4% or the 5% contribution to the NIS as people from to get something else, right? Not recognizing that these monies are required so that in periods like now, there would be something in the KP nationally from the national scheme that we can get something little to go by. We have had struggles with a number of people because the history has shown that in the NIS in the early days, a number of people are opposed to it. A number of people are opposed to it because, be it $20 or $40 a month. Some people see it as something that they can keep in their pocket to, as I said, whatever it is that they can do it. It is something similar to health insurance. We have had struggles at a number of workplaces where we have tried to bring in health insurance. And we have had workers struggling against us, telling us that they will take their chance because rather than paying, let us say, 40% of the premium, they prefer that money comes into their pocket, notwithstanding the fact that there may be some need for it down the road. So there's a lesson for us here, for all of us who are self-employed, that even if you're not self-employed, and you can make a contribution to the NIS for periods like now, because whether or not that there was this issue, you're going to reach retirement age at some time when you could no longer work as you used to do. COVID has brought this home to us. COVID has brought it. So I want us in the midst of the challenges that we have is to recognize the importance of the structures like the NIS, and I agree with Kennedy. We need to broaden its scope. So for instance, one of the aspects of the NIS, and I know it will require resources, but we need to come to a minimum benefit that a worker should receive per month from the NIS to be able to help with a living standard. Because quite a number of people get income from the NIS on a monthly basis, and it really can't do anything much. So it is a period that gives us an opportunity to do some review as we go forward. But I just wanted to plug that in about the importance of self-employed, those whose salaries are not deducted monthly by an employer, to make the statutory contribution to the NIS, understand and appreciate the importance of that contribution.
Wendy, I see you thinking really hard.
Yes, I really agree with all that Andre has said, and Kennedy and the senator. Because in terms of agriculture, I want to come back to agriculture because I think it's very important and it has been neglected. But Andre, governance goes beyond government. And what you're doing there, you've been a very responsible leader of the Trade Union Council in that you speak in to your membership through this forum. And I really wish, not only for self-employed workers, but even workers who have a monthly wage. People are talking about taking advantage of the moratorium in terms of, I get to ease up to not pay my mortgage. And that means when you become a pensioner, you may still have a mortgage. So I think it's an opportunity for the union, as we are doing, to engage in public education, using social media and other platforms to speak to workers, to help them understand how do you manage financially. Financial management becomes very important. And I'm really happy that you're speaking to self-employed persons, but even to salaried workers. They have to know how to balance in this period so that the road they can have a more secure future. So I really wanted to commend you on that. Now, in terms of agriculture, when we look at what is happening in the world, when we see what's happening in India, in the United States, in other places where our supply chain, where our food comes from, because we import almost everything that we use. I think one of the main lessons coming from this is, again, we must learn into what we grow what we eat. In as much as we are very much part of an integrated, globalized economy, we are part of a capitalist world economy, we can still find ways to do things and sort of nurture indigenous sub-economies, if I may say that. And agriculture becomes very important, and fisheries very important. And I think if this crisis is prolonged, we will see more than ever the need to invest in agriculture. It may mean using a lot of technology. I heard the senator speak earlier about farmers on a sort of group chat with the marketing board. Things like that, to have common platforms, to share concerns, to share best practices. Because, governance goes beyond government. And Kennedy, political parties, trade unions, civil society organizations like farmers' organizations, put out information there, come up with ideas, and ensure that your workers or the groups that you serve get a sense of hope and certainty amidst uncertainty. So I really want to encourage us to keep these kinds of platforms going, where we share information in a very positive way, so that workers can feel a sense of hope in the midst of doubt. Because it's a very difficult time. And Kennedy, you asked me earlier about mental health. And this is something we have to talk about, the psychological and mental health that would come out of this. I mean, nurses all over the world are giving up hope in some places because they can't cope with what they're seeing around them. We have students all over the world. I heard a student in the United States saying he had 25 assignments in one night online, and he just feels so pressured. And we also need psychologists, we need sociologists, we need social workers, we need mental health specialists to be very active during this process and after, because the fallout from COVID-19 will be suicides globally and mental health and psychological challenges. And it's something that we have to do even in our education system. We have to know how to invest in courses like not just public health, but psychology, social work, and some of these disciplines that could really help to care for people's total well-being, Kennedy, because we define health beyond just a state of well-being, but a total holistic well-being, yeah?
Wendy, it seems to me you're advocating a major change in the educational system, right?
Yes, definitely. A change that includes but goes beyond the formal education system, George.
Yeah.
In the formal education system, when we think about the world post-COVID, I think we have to do things differently. Little children in primary school must be able to pick up books and pick up games where they understand what is global public health, where they understand what a pandemic is. So as they play their games on their PlayStations, they must be playing games with solutions, not just to kill somebody or to win some game. Solutions for managing a pandemic. Get innovative with education at every single level. At the level of the secondary school, and the tertiary institutions like TAMCC, I think CXC has to really repurpose itself. Courses, for example, in disaster management, pandemic management, global health and development, globalization and public health. I mean, I think these should be courses, not just put in a little paragraph in a social studies curriculum. How do we, the climate adaptation and mitigation? CXC needs to be designing and redesigning courses, because, George, the question is, what type of education for what type of society? What type of education for what type of society? And if we see that our societies are evolving, and if we see what I spoke of earlier as the interlocking crises, the health crisis, the economic crisis, the environmental crisis, our education system must respond to and shape a future intentionally. So at the primary level, at the secondary level, I want to see debates, inter-school debates on how to manage a pandemic. What are the best practices? It should become part of our psyche, averting crises, and then when they do come, managing successfully through them. I think we need interdisciplinary teaching at the level of the university. Kennedy, you are at SGU, I'm at UU. We have to be able to develop courses and design courses that are interdisciplinary. Something like this global pandemic, as Kennedy said earlier, it goes beyond health. So we have to be able to have psychological perspectives, sociological perspectives, perspectives from public health practitioners and medical people and lawyers, so that we bring perspectives together as we teach. So the teaching and learning process itself must be designed in such a way that we arrest the problems. The education system must be relevant to the society that it is part of. But importantly, in terms of education, George, research, collaborative research. I would want to do a piece with Kennedy. I'm looking at the different multidimensionality of security, threats, health security, and so forth. And you're looking at public health. collaborative work becomes very important. And teaching with technology. Now, this COVID-19 pandemic has really forced online teaching in a serious way for some of us that were not doing it on a full-time basis. But it also brings to the fore sociological issues, questions of inequality, questions of lack of access. If a student only has a smartphone, and I'm asking that student to write an essay of 3,000 words, it's almost impossible. So what it does, it shows up disparities. COVID really does clash with poverty concerns. So in as much as online teaching and learning is part of what we must do, we still have to do it cognizant of inequalities in our societies. And I think that's some of the challenges that the underlying factors that we must fix, even as we think about going fully online. Because fully online would of course mean access, and that is good. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that that is happening in the context of deep inequalities in our societies in the Caribbean. But beyond the formal education system, I think there needs to be a national human resource planning strategy. If I may put on another hat, when I was in the public service years ago, in terms of training and development and so forth, I know there are things are happening in terms of human resource planning. I would want to see a renewed emphasis on human resource planning, a reprioritizing. If the government needs to invest, for example, we need epidemiologists, we need pathologists, pulmonary specialists, respiratory technicians, we need natural resource management experts and environmental economists. So when we're thinking about investing in education, when we're thinking about securing government scholarships and grants, I mean, students would come and say, oh, I need to do law or economics, or as the case may be. But I think we have to align our human resource or our national needs to how we then strategize, how we then plan. How many pathologists do we need? How many epidemiologists would we need in the next 5 years? And if we plan around the needs of the country, I think we need to do that much more as part of a broader strategy for building our capacity. So there is an urgency, yes?
In addition to all of those, I've heard you mention several times the use of technology. Wendy, these devices that we have today, the iPads, the smartphones, and all of that, really, really helpful. But unfortunately, the big guys, the big corporations out there in Hollywood, they're using these devices to teach our youth how to hate, how to kill, how to do a lot of evil things. And I think what is unfolding here in front of us right now is an opportunity to use these devices. We here know better than anybody else what is needed. Listen to the conversations we're having here this morning. We know what is needed. We need some of our software creators, our software writers, to start coming up with apps to help our kids out of this mess. Don't you agree?
Definitely. I thought somebody else wanted to. Definitely. And even as we sit at home in our lockdown situations, there's so many universities that are offering free online courses. So it's an opportunity too for us to renew our minds. For us, we may always want to do something in public speaking, or take a short course, so that the mental health issues, Kennedy, that we know exist, we could turn this on its head and use the technology wisely, not just to connect with family and friends and stay sane, but to learn, to build our knowledge base. So the technology becomes very important, not just in the formal school system, but even for us in our daily lives. And out of this, we can say, you know what, as a habit, let me learn something new every month. Let me learn something new. And in that way, we build our consciousness, we expand our minds.
All right.
And as citizens do that one by one, we build an ethos of consciousness.
Something else you said a little while ago, and I really want to take you up. I'm not going to let you get away on this. You were saying that, forums like this, we need to continue. Wendy, I am so proud to sit here today and say to you that what we're doing right now is the third in a series, which, for lack of a better term, I'm calling the Corona Comeback. We have had a session with Patrick Antoine, Alan Baczynski, and a bunch of other people. We've had a second session a couple of weeks ago, and today is the third session. And you know what, Wendy? I'm prepared to do this as often as possible with the help of people like you, Andre, Kennedy, Dunstan, all of you, as long as you guys are available. And this need not be a one-off thing. We have to be persistent with this. So if you guys would pledge to continue popping up here and let's continue charting the way forward, this platform's all yours.
George,
thank you, George. Go ahead, Andre.
By the way, just before Andre jumps in here, Andre, there are a couple of comments that came in a little while ago pertaining to you. Somebody named Tessa Barry says, Brother Lewis, I will add that the lesson is also for government to contribute to some sort of stabilization fund for the country that can be drawn from in times of crisis. Then Trini62 says, Andre is quite right, and that the people who are most negatively affected by this are the low-income earners, and the large number of the Caribbean community are in that group. And then she also goes on to say, they are the babysitters, domestic workers, cleaners, non-professional frontline workers, etc. Kipling Francis says, I wish the government would listen to this program. Lots to learn, but I doubt they would because they think they know it all. Sad to say, but the truth be told. Maria St. Bernard says, thank you, George. This is a learning platform for me. Anthony Howard says, my goal this month is to start an aquaponics garden using information from YouTube. My COVID-19 reward. Okay, Andre, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you very much. Let me just indicate that in the labor movement, and probably we need to do that more publicly, we in the Technical and Allied Workers Union, and I'm sure that our other colleagues in our brothers and sister unions have been doing that. Our engagement with our members, and we in town will do that every Wednesday. We go to a different workplace to touch base with our members. We spend a lot of time speaking to them about upgrading themselves, the use of their electronic device to upgrade themselves, rather than just be engaged in just sending out all kind of different messages, jokes. Use it to upgrade yourself. Use it to help train yourself. Do not just depend on the employer or on government. Rather than going home every day and going on the blocks and just playing domino or draft or going to kick football or cricket, use some of that time to upgrade yourself. If we were to look at the UWI campus and CAMCC, we will see that quite a number of us, now that we have gone on at the workplace in our 40s and 50s, that is when we are balancing responsibilities with our family. We are rushing out there to try to upgrade ourselves. We need to do that. George, I have absolutely no difficulty in participating in programs like these. There was a time when I still wonder about implementation, but what I've come to accept over the years is that even if we are not able in any substantial way to implement some of these ideas, is that it creates a basis for progressive discussions that may take place outside of this forum, and that ultimately there will be more creative minds. We do not suffer for want of ideas, and not short for want of ideas. What we are short on is getting programs in place. And as we wind down the program, I can't help but interject that we must not go back to the days of when we had load shedding in terms of GrenLink. We must read electricity price, yes, because it is impacting on the productivity and the cost of doing business in Grenada. But we must ensure that whatever decision that we make, it does not bring us back to the days of load shedding. We also have to protect the environment. And therefore, we need to relook at or get some reassurances that whatever hotels that have been developed, let me make the point, they're welcome. Whatever hotels that are developed, or other businesses that do not come at the expense of our environment and the climate, because we will pay a heavy price for it. We have that responsibility. So I wanted to interject here. So it is important for workers and the children of workers to continuously upgrade themselves. And at the workplace, especially in a period like now, encourage workers in the past, but mostly in a period like now. It is not about your right. I want to make workers know that. It's not about an employer exploiting the poor, but it is not about your right in this period in terms of your job description. It's absolutely important through discussion that you become flexible, Yes, one can fight and establish the right. But this is a period when we need to show flexibility and use the opportunity to learn to do different things. Because in a challenging period like now, most of the workers that will survive on the workplace are those that are multi-skilled, and those who will also show an understanding, right, as to where the business are. And therefore, we as trade union leaders have that responsibility, as we have done in the past, and to do so more now than ever, to engage with the employer, to find creative ways and means of holding on to employment. But we must be prepared to make the necessary compromises. But it must be done. It must be done through dialogue. It must not be unilaterally imposed by the employer. This is a period for us to engage the different employers and the employees likewise in charting the way forward.
All right, Andre, I'll tell you what. We're running out of time. We only have about 8 minutes or so left. Now, I have to take a break. During that break, I'd like each of you, Dunstan, you, Vincent, and Wendy, start scratching your heads. I want each of you to take a minute and do a little synopsis of what went on here this morning and your pronunciation on the way forward. The way forward. Let's be forward thinking. Let's not dwell on all the trouble we're in right now. So when we come back from this break, we'll hear from you guys. How about that?
Certainly.
Certainly.
Yeah,
that's easy. I could do it. I'll do it when I come back.
Okay, Andre.
Hi guys, it's Sabrina Francis encouraging you to stay inside and be COVID-19 smart. Do you hear?
Hey, it's Mr. Golden, and I'm urging you, the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, to be COVID-19 smart. Stay home. All you hear?
This is Mandela Links, and I'm encouraging you to remain COVID-19 free. Keep yourself safe and your family by staying home. It's the best way to prevent this virus from spreading. Remember, please remain at your homes so that we all can live to see tomorrow when all this is over. God blessings and one love all the time.
I say, nah, man. Wood, yo, this is the Dan man, Lindy, telling you to be COVID-19 safe. Stay home. That way we could play a man sooner rather than later. Everything will come to pass. You know the tingo, mass must play. How you mean?
Boom shakalaka, this is Lennox from the West Point family, reminding all Grenadians to be COVID-19 smart. Stay home, it's just for a short time. We will be back on our feet soon, alright? Bless.
The COVID-19 pandemic is causing untold human suffering and economic devastation around the world. I recently called for an immediate global ceasefire to focus on our shared struggle to overcome the pandemic. I appealed for an end to violence everywhere now. But violence is not confined to the battlefield. For many women and girls, the threat looms largest where they should be safest, in their own homes. And so I make a new appeal today for peace at home and in homes around the world. We know lockdowns and quarantines are essential to suppressing COVID-19, but they can trap women with abusive partners. Over the past weeks, as economic and social pressures and fear have grown, we have seen a horrifying global surge in domestic violence. In some countries, the number of women calling support services has doubled. Meanwhile, healthcare providers and police are overwhelmed and understaffed. Local support groups are paralyzed or short of funds. Some domestic violence shelters are closed, others are full. I urge all governments to make the prevention and redress of violence against women a key part of their national response plans for COVID-19. That means increasing investment in online services and civil society organizations, making sure judicial systems continue to prosecute abusers, setting up emergency warning systems in pharmacies and groceries, declaring shelters as essential services, and creating safe ways for women to seek support without alerting their abusers. Women's rights and freedoms are essential to strong, resilient societies. Together we can and must prevent violence everywhere, from war zones to people's homes, as we work to beat COVID-19.
All right, folks, we're back, and we're going to start with you, Dunstan. Let's hear your parting comments this morning.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, George. I must say thanks to my other speakers on this, Andre, Kennedy, Wendy. I learned a lot from your interaction and your presentations here this morning. As we move forward, I would like to say that we need to do things differently. We have to embrace technology and innovativeness as we move forward. And my example I gave earlier on with regards to the marketing, I think that this is an initiative that I would like to see the order of the day. Agriculture has to be an important talking point right through. In our education system, we need to introduce it very early, and we need to make sense of it. One of the things about agriculture is that when it is introduced into the schools, it is introduced as a subject matter that you get a grade for. Introduced as a possibility of creating employment or creating employment, improving the net worth of our society. So we need to look at that as we move forward. And Wendy said that education should be should change our attention. Yeah, I think that education in agriculture should really change our future intentionally. We need to embrace the what is being said about climate change and being resilient and all those things like that. Consider COVID-19 as a threat, and our livelihood be fitted into this thinking. I say to my farmers and fishers out there that it is difficult. Respect the regulations put forward by the Ministry of Health. Respect your life, stay safe, and do the things that will ensure that your survival, that you survive in this very difficult time. So I thank you very much. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here this morning. Thanks.
Now let's hear from
yes, George,
Andre.
it's up to you.
Andre.
Okay, I want to once again say thank you and to all the workers who continue to be on the front line. Thanks very much for what you have been doing. The aspect of the way forward, I can state in 1 second, social dialogue, we need to continue speaking, but just to develop on this about a bit. One other thing that we need to also pay attention to is that to be realistic, this challenging and these challenges in this period can also bring us some social ills and some social challenges. And I want to make an appeal to all of us not to exploit the situation. We do not want to see any sexual abuse. We don't want to see any sexual harassment because there will be some crises as we go forward. We do not want to see, and we want to call for an end to social, domestic violence, sexual harassment, child abuse. The aspect of the lockdown can have serious impact, especially for small or large families in small spaces, where where you grow up and every time you turn your bunk on, because there's 5 or 6 of you all probably in a one-bedroom apartment house. These things can pose a lot of challenge, and we know it. I know it, George. That is why a number of us in our holidays in Grenoble spend a lot of time on the outside. Because when you are home, you always get in each other way. And a lot of people are going through this now. I want to make a special appeal for us to be aware of it. If we are aware of it, we can help minimize this. And to recognize that we will get through this. I'm absolutely confident that we shall get through this. Absolutely no doubt in my mind that we'll come out of this and we'll come out of this as a stronger nation. How long it will take, I do not know. But I'm absolutely certain that so far, the measures that we have taken in terms of physical distancing is helping. And just to make that appeal to workers, to recognize that this is not normal times, even the employer will not have an immediate answer. There will be challenges. When we take place, whenever that is, do not just respond in a negative or challenging manner to the employer. Management really sometimes, even a period, do not answer as to where to go. But at the same time, as for the engagement between the union and the employers, as we seek the way forward, we give you a commitment as the labor movement, as we have continuously done, to put the interests of the nation at heart. But at the same time, we recognize that there is inequality in the system, and therefore the level of sacrifices will not be the same right through the board, to ensure that there are some minimum conditions that are maintained. And I wish all of Grenada all the very best as we continue in this struggle, because it is indeed a struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Much appreciated. Now, Mr. Kennedy Roberts.
All right. Thank you, George, and colleagues. Thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you all today. And there are a few things that I want to just summarize, because, George, as you rightly say, we need to continue this discussion. We didn't really deal with the impact on young people, the youth, because there are a lot of young people out there now who are going through a little difficulty, and I think we need to come up with some targeted interventions to help support them. The whole issue of technology and the way we're using it and the way it will change, with the university having to close down, we had to prepare a range of different courses for the medical students. And one of those that, in my component, one of the things that we highlighted was the whole way in which the health system is changing to use the technology. And telemedicine has become an integral part in the delivery of healthcare services in the U.S. We have to look at the role of telemedicine in Grenada, the way forward. Again, several of the points made, and when you talked about planning, KARI is doing an excellent job there, but now I think we now have to review that Sustainable Development Plan with regards to what COVID has brought to the table, and really see how we can look at that plan and process in a more substantive way, because there are a lot of us who believe that, the plan is going through, but we're not sure of the commitment of the government with regards to the plan. So I think this is something we have to do also. And of course, the whole linkages, and we didn't talk about Petit Martinique and the whole issue with regard to Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So I know there are a lot more we have to talk about, but I want to reassure the Grenadian people that, as Andre said, we were going to go through this. Let us deal with the physical distancing. And I think we need to look and that Barbados proposal with regards to everyday different persons based on their surname going out. I think it would be more effective based on what I've seen with the MoneyGram situation, people lining up to get MoneyGram on Thursday, with the supermarkets yesterday and last week. So I think there's need to review this days of shopping so that we can spread it out more and less persons are jamming up on those day or two. So it was a pleasure chatting, and look forward to us doing a lot more.
Well, Kennedy, I'll tell you this, as long as you're prepared to put together a list of things that we need to talk about, Georgie Porgy is there, And I'm going to hold you guys to this. I'm really going to hold you guys. I'm listening to you, and I'm going to hold you guys because, you know, there are a lot of people out there who are talking about what should be done, what must be done, what could be done, but they ain't lifting a damn finger to do diddly squat. But let me tell
No,
you.
but I'm asking the government, though, to advise the people who supposed to be on this committee, the trade union, the agricultural workers, those of us who have names have been submitted, because I think this is an important part of the process that we could do moving forward.
Kennedy, this forum that you're on right now, I would love to have that be a part of the vehicle that they use to do what, you know, you're hoping they would accomplish. Wendy, girl, let me hear
Yes,
you.
hello, George, and the rest of the members of the panel. Thank you very much for enabling me to be part of this conversation. Again, as I started off by saying, I want to just reach out to our Grenadian and Caribbean sisters and brothers at home and in the diaspora. Many of them are concerned about loved ones who are either infected or affected in some ways. And we want to just, you know, encourage them at this time. Today is Easter Sunday. And for those of us who practice the Christian faith, I think it's a good point on which we could end. The hope of the resurrection, the power of the resurrection, the fact that Christ rose so that we could have life and we could have it more abundantly. So in the midst of this crisis, I want to leave us with a word of hope. And we must always hold on, look up. When we are tempted to doubt, things will be okay. We will get through this. You know, we need community leaders, I believe, who inspire. We can use our social media platforms to send out short inspiration because many people are fearful. These are grave times of uncertainty. And, you know, we can sit on a program and try to analyze this and make sense of it. But for many people, it's about life or death. And we want to be able to sort of find ways to inspire people, encourage them, our community leaders, whether we're speaking about trade union leaders, whether we're speaking about faith-based leaders, I want to encourage them to just keep inspiring and engaging and giving hope to people in these very difficult times. I want to say to Grenada, stay the course. Stay the course. These are very difficult waters to navigate for the leadership of Grenada and for the people of Grenada as well, for the nurses and the doctors and the dock workers and the maids in the hospital and the police officers at the front lines. Stay the course. Stay the course to ordinary citizens who are trying to balance the desire for freedom with the imposition of order. Because we're trying to balance freedom and order so that we can save lives. Stay the course. This won't last forever. It is difficult as we go through, but we know that when we come out of this, there should be some lessons that should make us stronger. This is 46 years of independence. And whether or not we had COVID-19, we should be asking some fundamental questions about ourselves. What type of society do we want and do we deserve? What type of economy? What type of polity? And I think when we think about a society 46 years after independence, we want to think about harmony. We want to think about consensus. We want about community. I think what is happening now, this crisis is helping us understand how much of a community we are, whether it's from Grenada to New York, you know, trying to talk and give jokes and uplift and pray together. So let's remember that we are a community. We won't always agree, but let's find ways to shape our society, to deal with some of the underlying inequalities and the divisions that really don't help us advance as a people. So we need to strengthen our community structures. In terms of the polity, what kind of political system? We spoke a lot about governance and participation and inclusion. This is an opportunity for us to again go back to the drawing board and really get into some serious self-diagnosis, analyze our political system, and try to see ways that we could make it better. Because there's no time during this crisis or any time for politicizing very, very critical issues that really these issues about life and death. So we need to look at our political system. We need to again revisit constitutional reform. We need to ensure that we have a mature polity, as we approach 50 years as a nation, with or without COVID. There's some things that we need to rid ourselves of as we mature as a nation. And what type of economy? We didn't speak about tourism, but I think we need sustainable tourism, and tourism will be different. I don't know that many people going on cruises very, very soon. We have to think about how do we have a tourism product that makes sense for our environment and makes sense for our people in terms of the patrimony of our people. So we have to be rethinking tourism. And agriculture must be central in terms of food security, in terms of valuing what we produce, in terms of valuing our farmers and our fisher folks. So we have to think about an economy. For example, the services sector would need a lot of renewing. The orange economy that involves like artists and playwrights and so forth. I see a space for them in the new economy. I can see plays on COVID-19, and we need to invest in that orange economy. And on our artists must consciousness building, not just in terms of entertainment, but for education, for knowledge creation as well. So I see a new economy. I see a new society. I see a new polity. And I just want to refer us back to Kari's article when she's talking about rebirthing the society. And she's ending it by speaking about how we should be, how we should love, and how we should care. And I think at the end of the day, if we learn nothing else from COVID-19, it's about how we renew ourselves spiritually, so that we can care and we could love and we could ensure that our contribution to this world is one that is purposeful. So on this note, I want to wish Grenada well. Stay the course. Stay the course. Citizens need to do what they're supposed to do, and the government needs to continue on the path, but ensure that the loopholes are fixed as we go forward. And I wish us all safety, and may we be well. Thank you very much.
Wendy, one thing your sister KARI mentioned that I didn't hear you mention, and that was governance. And I think it's going to be very, very important that we take a second look at governance as we move forward. Folks, thank you so much to every one of you. Wendy, we're looking for your guidance in the area of education. Dunstan, we need your help as far as food security is concerned, sir. Andre, we need you, sir. Labor, we're going to need a very productive force as we move forward, but we also want those who labor on our behalf to be justly rewarded and given what they are entitled to. Kennedy, health, oh my God. You probably have one of the biggest challenges on your head. We need your help in the area of health, Kennedy. And every one of you, this country is literally counting on you guys. It wasn't by chance that I asked you guys to be here today. You know, when you guys speak, I listen. So please, thank you and come again. Now just hang on a sec, because we wrap up every program with a parting word from the Holy Scriptures. And today, hello?
Could you just wish our friend Lennox and Joel the very best, who are supposed to be on today?
Toes!
Yes.
Lennox, we missed you, boy. He didn't sound too hot this morning when he called. Thank you very much for bringing that up, Andre.
Is he quarantined?
Lennox, are you quarantined? I'm sure he's listening to us, but in any event, we hope you can join us on a subsequent program, because again, your words have been valued by me in the past, and I look forward to hearing you again. God bless you. Now, Luke chapter 9, verses 23 and 24 says, "Then he said to them all, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me, guess what? They'll save it. Luke 9, 23, 24. My dear friends, thank you all for joining us. I do wish you God's blessings. Go enjoy the rest of your Easter. Don't go to the beach. Don't go to the beach. And I hope it won't be too long before I see you guys again. Thanks again for joining me. So long.